Hey, everybody.
Hi, guys.
We're back.
We are back at our favorite little coffee house, Cup of Joe, in beautiful downtown Twin Lakes, Wisconsin. You must come here.
It's awesome, and it's a beautiful day outside, and the coffee is great, and the company is great.
Absolutely. So ching, ching, girlfriend. Here we go. Little sip.
The communal sip. Everybody. Yeah.
Everybody. Okay. So we are back, and today's subject matter is going to be on a rather, I would say, intense subject known as loss. But before we start that, Nancy and I both realized that not everyone out there in our...
You don't know who the hell we are.
You don't know who we are. So Nancy's going to give her background, and then I'm going to give mine, and then we're going to go on to the subject matter. So take it away, Nancy.
So my name is Nancy Nelson, and I lost my husband. Well, he disappeared in 2009, and exactly 5 months later to the day, we found out that he had killed himself about a mile from our house, so 2010. So I've been a widow since then. Wrote this book that got, I'm very proud of it. That's my shameless plug. This got published in 2017. It was very cathartic to do. You can get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. I am a certified coach because that was one of the things I went back and did. And have my bachelor's degree in applied behavioral sciences. Got that in 2012 after everything had happened. I have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. And I don't, unfortunately, live in the great state of Wisconsin. I live in the great state of Illinois. I just threw up a little in my mouth, but I'm okay now. What else can I tell you? I've known Diane for...
Long time.
Yeah.
But
years
we'll do another show
that's
on
another
that
story for another day. Take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Iser. I'm going to talk a little bit just about my professional background, what I bring to the table here. I am the owner of New Day Aging, LLC. I'm a senior and patient advocate, and I am extremely impassioned about serving older adults. Nancy can attest to that. My education and my professional background is in the field of gerontology. I have very sound knowledge and comprehension of psychosocial gerontology issues. And what I bring to the table with respect to aging is a new model or perspective on how we can age better. One of the things that I try to educate people on is the fact that we can view aging as adding to life as opposed to subtracting from it. And we unfortunately, society norms dictate that aging is based on a chronological number. Well, while I don't agree with that, and I really don't think that's a good measure, one of the things that I do address and agree with is that as we age, we decline. What I bring to the table is that I would like to see people understand that the way they approach that decline, in essence, has great value on how well they are able to go through it. So it's called positivity. It's called cohesiveness to the generations. I also believe that we are not separate as generations, but more cohesive. I believe there's untapped wisdom, girlfriend, in untapped wisdom in what older adults can bring to the table to navigate the challenges and especially the current day challenges. So that is a little snapshot of my professional background. There you go. See, it was painless.
And I have to say, funny aside, my 28-year-old daughter at one point in time last week said, well, you're smarter than me. And I said, yes, I am. Damn right I am.
Ching, ching again, girlfriend.
Yes, I would think so. I got a little time on you there, sweetie. Yeah, you get some stuff.
Exactly right.
Anyway.
So loss. Oh, my goodness gracious. So I'll give you a little background now personally. One of the reasons I asked to do this show earlier than later with Nancy as we review our subject matter is that I lost my wonderful husband, and his nickname was Mr. Wonderful, last year, January of 2020. I am in year 2 of loss. Nancy's in year, 11?
12,
I think it's 12.
11, 12. I don't even know. It's all
blur. It's a blur. But we both have different circumstances, as you heard with Nancy. And one of the things that I'm going to address today, I'm going to do things that I've never done before. I'm going to be transparent in a way that I would normally never be publicly. but I want to reach out to the people that were affected by the loss of their loved ones in 2020 during a pandemic, because no one wants to address loss in 2020. Everyone is turned a blind eye and a deaf ear to everything other than the pandemic. And for someone like myself who was on year 2, and many, many people who lost loved ones last year and they're on year 1, I just want to address and tell you that you have a support structure out here. You have it in Nancy and myself.
You're not alone.
You are not alone. And as a matter of fact, that's why we want you to leave. If you need support, we want you to leave something on our channel site, some comment. We will contact you. But you are not alone. So in saying that, I'm going to do something right now that takes a lot of guts for me to do.
Can I interrupt
You can
for
jump
just a
right
second?
in, girlfriend.
2020 created loss for everyone
Agreed.
in some way, shape, or form. Some people, it was the loss of a loved one. Some people, it was just simply the loss of their freedom or the loss of their peace of mind or the loss of whatever. But there's universality in everything that we talk about here.
Yes.
So don't feel that, well, nobody close to me actually died during that time, so this doesn't apply to me. There are things that apply across the board for everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And take from it what you want to take from
Right.
it in actuality. So I a good friend of mine, when I first lost my husband, gave me a wonderful journal. And I just want to show you, I'm going to be reading from this journal on a actual journaling that I just did recently in the last couple days. But I want you to see this because it's phenomenal. Basically, it says, grief fucking hurts. Write this shit down.
And it's really true.
And it's really, really true. So I recently came back from a little mini vacation, the first one I've taken without Mr. Wonderful. And upon arriving home, I was hit with a wave of emotion that was difficult. I'm accustomed to it, and it comes from loss. So I decided to sit down and write my feelings out. And in the process, I actually discovered that this is going to be my first blog. I'm going to start a blog, and the blog is going to be navigating being widowed, middle-aged, and invisible. Because I think that there is a group out there of middle-aged males and females that have lost their loved ones, and we have a whole different experience in our widowhood at the age that we're at. Every age has its challenges. If you lose a loved one and you're younger, you have challenges that go with that. But this is something that I've been noticing in the last year of my life, and also talking over with other people who've lost their spouses at a middle-aged status, or whatever you want to call us, that there's challenges there that are socially keeping us apart. So that being said, I'm going to now share a little bit of my life with you, and I hope I do this without getting upset. But if I do, you'll understand the depth of emotion. So this is from May 7th. I've arrived back home from my first mini vacation without him. It was bittersweet. Those who were still around me were excited for me. It wasn't until I was on this trip and had reached my destination that I realized what else I have lost. First night at the hotel, I get the king bed only to remember how fun it was to look forward to him cuddling with me in that bed. Gone. As I watched the golfers arrive at the tee, I felt the singe of memory that included how much fun it was to ride in that golf cart with him, my hand on his knee. Again, this stinging realization, gone. Spending the week with good friends who I am so happy for as they start a new chapter and adventure in their life, only to be reminded I lost the dream. The new chapter and new adventure that included him, gone. So after a week of learning how to go on vacation again, now solo, I arrive home. My cherished longtime friend heads home. I stand in my house and hear the silence. I have a strong urge to leave to stay busy. I decide to grab a cup of coffee at my favorite coffee shop with my 2 new pals that have been a godsend. Unfortunately, there is a private party and no chance to share my vacation moonshine with them that I brought back from Cookeville, Tennessee. A little lightheartedness there. I head back to my empty house. No one to share my trip with. My home answering machine shows no messages, no calls for the week I was gone. A not so nice reminder that I am invisible. I am alone. I try to think of someone to call. I call my daughter. She is happy and busy with friends. I keep my voice light and try not to let her know that gut-wrenching aloneness I feel. She would be upset. It wouldn't be fair to her. She has been a blessing of care, concern, and love to me, even as she continues to grieve him, her steadfast stepfather. And just for the record, Angie knew that I was in a weird place because she's intuitive. And she said, Mom, I heard it in your voice. So God bless her. I'm grateful to have her. So I decided it would be best to head out to get some dinner alone. I managed to fend off the intensity of my emotions and land at a bar restaurant that I feel comfortable at on my own. I sit at the bar and order a beer and some dinner. A bar that hasn't let the pandemic dictate how people socialize. Normalcy that I have desperately needed for over a year, but have had taken from me under the pretense it's for my own good because of the pandemic. Like I haven't the emotional intelligence to take care of myself. Well, for the record, folks, I have it. I do have it, the emotional intelligence to know how to take care of myself. And that emotional intelligence has made me aware of just how invisible I have become. I am an outgoing, engaging person who loves people and connection to them. Yet, I now sit at a bar or table in a restaurant and am no longer looked at, let alone talked to. By society's standards, I am that older woman who no longer is desired, no longer approached, no longer interesting enough to engage in a conversation with. I am acutely aware that my looks have taken a hit over the last 2 years for numerous reasons. I'm acutely aware that the beauty I felt I had with him is gone. No more will I hear and feel his love and admiration as his beautiful girl. So allowing myself to feel and deal with all of this, I eat my meal alone and occupy myself with what else? In 2021, my phone. Then the strangest thing happens. Another middle-aged woman enters the bar with her partner and felt the need to wave her hand over my phone. She chuckles and says something like, I had to do it. And I laugh back, understanding she was sending me a message that I needed to not be on my phone. Surprise, surprise. I laughed internally and wanted to say, if someone had been talking to me, I never would have been on it. Again, invisible. So I pay my bill, have a brief surface pleasant dialogue with the bartender who wishes me well, and head back to that empty house alone. And that's it. That's what I wrote that day in that journal. And I continue to write today a little bit more, Nancy, but one of the things I'll say to the end of this journal entry is that these losses were delayed and prolonged because of the pandemic. And that is what has happened to so many people that lost loved ones in 2020. It doesn't matter how you lost them in death. It does not. Unfortunately, the pandemic took front lead, and the only questions that were ever asked of me initially were, did he die from COVID? And I said, no, he didn't. He died from something that ravaged his body and no one deserved to have. So for all of you that have lost someone this year, that journal entry is for you. For the fact that you have been forgotten about, for the fact that you have had no one to hold you and hug you and let you feel their love from physical contact. There's been a lot of things that have happened regarding loss in 2020 that are not being addressed, that people are suffering in silence, that they have no voice to reach out to society and say, wait a minute, I need my connection. I need the things that will heal me, such as being with people I love. But instead, there's been one single solitary focus, and we all know what that is. So, my friend,
Well, and I think one of the things that comes across the most in hearing that, this is the first time I'm hearing that
Yeah.
as well. And by the way, I'm very proud of you for putting that down, and it's not easy
Thank
to
you.
be present enough when you're in the midst of all that to be able to really document, and it's important to be able to do it. Then it becomes a book someday, possibly, whatever.
Maybe.
Is the fact that that feeling invisible, that feeling alone, and what I think one of the biggest lessons over the last year has been is that that's reality.
Mm-hmm.
We are alone. No one else is us.
Right.
And everyone gets into their own space, and being with other people or looking for other people to be there for our comfort or for
Or to
our
share the experience of loss.
right.
To just be able to be sad
Well, and to
with
be
a person.
or and to be heard,
To be heard.
or to have that be held for you.
Thank you.
It can become a distraction too. And I
Mhm.
think that, a lot of the whole point of all this is to try to find that balance.
Yeah.
And there's no easy way.
Mm-mm.
You can't snap your fingers. And I heard something the other day that said, grief never goes away.
No.
It's just that we become accustomed to it.
Right.
And I thought that was very poignant and very fitting, because over time, it doesn't have the same gut punching power
Mhm.
all the time, but then there'll be those moments when you least expect it.
Right.
When I'm 11 years out,
Mm-hmm.
almost, I don't even remember, whatever. There's still those moments where, the anger comes up or the sadness is there or the tears are shed. You don't get over it. Just
learn to
as
live with it.
well, and it's losing. I consider like our universal loss is losing out on something special. Everybody has, whatever it may be, and again, there's no chart with grief that says, oh well, you're a level 10 and oh you're only a level 5, or that's not really significant or whatever. Everyone's loss is important and is significant to them,
Right.
and we're taught things all the time, and so much of our experience is learning to reframe the challenges to opportunities to learn.
Correct.
So my question would be, with everything that you've been through, Diane, has the way that you would minister or be in relationship with someone who suffered loss, has it changed from your experience?
Okay, great question actually. And this is strange because we hadn't talked
No.
we hadn't talked about this. Is candid. We told you it's candid. The interesting thing that goes through my head, Nancy, is what you don't know about me is I have a very good friend, and she along this journey in this last year, I've only had maybe several friends that were brave enough to be able to listen to me at some of the darkest times of my life. And one in particular lost her husband back in 2010. And interestingly enough, at that time, I had not lost someone to the magnitude that I just did. And I remember her being so completely shocked at his death. He had been sick, but she was taken back by it. I wasn't taken back by my husband's. He was sick, and I had a different way of dealing with it. She was shocked by it. She was in disbelief. Well, what I chose to do with her is, because I felt so bad for where she might be, I couldn't empathetically understand, but I sure could sympathetically understand. And she would attest to this. I gave her consciously 6 years. She went through some grief that lasted quite a long time for her situation. And as a friend, I gave her 6 years. It took her 6 years to come out of it, basically. She started dating again. And I don't say that as a big kudo for me. I'm not trying to get an audience that goes, oh, look at you, what you did. I say that because I want to open people's minds. I want them to become aware. I did that because I knew intuitively that my friend needed to just be heard. I could not fix her problems. I wasn't supposed to fix her problems. What I was supposed to do as a friend is what I have longed for in this last year. I myself, knowing what I needed to heal, I knew what I needed to heal. A lot of people choose to be alone after loss, Nance. They don't want to be talked to, but there's a lot of us out there that want to be talked to. We want to be able to share. And that's what I did. And so in answer to your question, I would continue to do that to this day. If I have someone, and it goes even to this last year, if I had someone that was suffering a loss, I'm not going to let anything stop me, nothing, including a pandemic, stop me from reaching out, being emotionally supportive, being physically supportive, because I now, better than ever, having lost someone very, very important in my life, understand what the ramifications are negatively when I was forced to be isolated. I was forced to be alone after 28 years of seeing someone's face every day. 6 weeks into grief, I was being forced and being told that no, you can't see anyone. You can't have anyone hug you. So now, more than ever, has this changed me? Absolutely. It changed me from the standpoint that I will continue if someone goes through what I've gone through, which is why if you're hearing this and you're devastated because you had to bury someone and you couldn't have your loved ones near you to bury them, I get it. And I'm here to tell you as living proof, I am a strong woman. I've had to really be the person that had to pull myself up in a way to survive for my children who have been wonderfully supportive and some good close friends. And I'll do that for anyone out there right now. If you're hurting, if you're struggling, if you're on that couch or you're on that floor and you can't get up, I remember the feeling quite well. So yes, I would do what I did for my friend.
Okay.
I would do it in a heartbeat. Nothing would change except this time, not only would I have sympathy, I'd have empathy.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, and I think interestingly enough, and I can relate a little bit from the standpoint of losing someone to suicide. My daughter said at one point, people don't share stories of his life, or I remember when your dad did whatever, XYZ, because they focus more on how things ended than how he lived. And there's a fear of, I don't want to bring this up because I don't know where you're at in your journey, and I don't want to bring things up or trigger you or that kind of thing.
And I'm going to jump in. Nancy brings up a great point. One of the big things that I have known and discovered further is a lot of times people who are grieving the loss of your husband or my husband are dealing with their own grief in losing that person. And sometimes they are just flat out afraid to actually see and feel the loss that Nancy's gone through with suicide, that I went through with my husband's illness. They are afraid. That is unfortunately for those of us that are looking at them to just help us where we need the help because we have to do this ourselves in some measure. They can't do it. They're afraid and you know what? And I could totally see it with suicide. People are afraid to talk about when he lived and all the things that he represented to you because of the terrible way in which he left this earth.
Right, there's baggage.
And yet, I'm sure knowing you, you're like me in this context. I'm not bothered by the questions. Right. I'm not bothered by somebody even if you say the wrong thing to me, I might not like it, but at least I'm going to give you credit for trying because silence with loss is terrible.
Well, and I think what happens with that, and I even write about it in the book, is that we want to fix things. We're fix-it people.
Right.
We want to come in and be the answer, or the come in on the white horse and rescue somebody from feeling badly. We want them to feel better. We want them to.
Right.
We want to fix it all. And when you have loss, like you've experienced, like I've experienced, there is nothing that can fix that.
Right. There isn't.
So there's a helplessness that's connected to it, which is uncomfortable for most people. It takes a really secure person or a person who's done a lot of their own soul searching to just be able to say, you know what, I can't fix it, but I'll sit here with you in this.
Right.
I'm here for you. I believe in you. I know that you're figuring this out. And all I can say to you is it sucks.
Yes. And
it sucks. And there's not a damn thing that I can do to make it suck less. But I do want you to know that I'm here. I'm still here. after what I've been through. You know,
After 11 years, right?
you're still here.
Right.
Life does go on. There are beautiful things that occur right alongside of the painful things.
Right.
And I think
There's
that,
grace.
well, and I think it's that
There's grace.
contrast
Right.
too. If we don't have hard things and hard times, we don't really learn to appreciate when things feel easier.
Right.
So there's such a universal thing that connects all of us, even more so now because of what everyone's lost during this last year. And that, what was it? 14 days to flatten the curve. How many? What? Yeah.
And where are we? And you know what? Nancy brings up another great point. I think what I would like to see, and I'm sure Nancy, she'll tell you what she wants to see too. But what I want to see, what I want you to get out of this YouTube video this time around is I want you to understand that people that go through loss need physical touch. They need to see you. They need to hear your voice on the phone. And I'm going to say this, and this probably won't sit well with a lot of people. Social media platforms do not cut it when
It's
it
not a
comes to
substitute.
loss.
It's not a
It is
substitute.
not a substitute. And I am angry. I am angry, and I'm being transparent. I'm angry because of the depth of hurt that I felt this year, the depth of abandonment, and the willingness of people close to me to believe that a text message chain was going to be good enough to support me. And I'm being honest for the first time publicly. It wasn't good enough.
Well, and I think that goes into that whole, we talked about it in our very first video, talked about being fearful and how to live your life fearlessly. There's a certain anonymity or a certain protection when it's behind a screen than when it's in person.
It's loss of humanity. I'm sorry, Nancy, it's loss of humanity.
It is. And it's all part of the plan.
There's a detach.
Yeah.
When you
Purposely.
there's a detach here.
And a separation.
There's a separation. And maybe my words will impact people today, and Nancy's words will via this platform. But believe you me, if you were sitting here with me right now, it would probably be even more powerful. And that's the human connection. That's the connection that this last year has forced a delay in the loss I've experienced, a prolonging of the loss. And I'm not talking about just me. I'm talking about all of you out there that buried someone for whatever reason, buried them and they died alone. They didn't die with families surrounding them. No one deserves to die alone. No one, for no reason, deserves that. And that is that's what I hope you get out of this video today, is that a better understanding that life has gone on around the pandemic, and that it cannot be the only subject matter that we talk about, because as you said, we're 6 weeks to flatten the curve, and look where we're at.
Literally, what was it, 14 days?
Right.
14 days.
A lot has happened, and a lot of real...
Today is May 2021.
Right, it's over a year. So in that over a year time frame, a lot of people don't want to hear about life has gone on. A lot of people have stayed stuck in their own world of challenge. I'm not in denial of challenge in the last year for everyone. I'm not. I'm just trying to speak out about a subject that's had no voice, none whatsoever in this last year, and say there are real ramifications and consequences to those that are left behind by the ones that they love that they lost in 2020.
Well, and last time we did an episode, we talked about distraction.
Mm-hmm.
And we have been very distracted over the last, 14 days to flatten the curve. How many? Okay, right? We've been very distracted. So because we are distraction-oriented people, is there a way for us to become distracted by the living, breathing human beings that we encounter in our world? And reach out to those people. And I know that, this has just wreaked havoc on people that have depression and anxiety and all of, concerns and whatever, because fear porn, etc. One of the best things that you can do in a situation where you are feeling uncomfortable is to open up your eyes and look around you and do something for someone else. Count your own blessings, be grateful, stop always focusing on the minutia of your own life, and kind of like pull your head out and look around and see that maybe, somebody needs a cup of coffee with you, or a phone call from you,
Right.
or a note,
A note.
handwritten note,
A handwritten,
mailed.
not an email,
You know?
not a text message, a handwritten note
Right.
that actually shows you took time.
Right.
Because that relationship
Somebody needs
was
your time.
absolutely correct.
Time is priceless, and I find that yes, we all have lives. We're all busy. We're all whatever. When you have slowed yourself down enough to look outside yourself, follow up on, I was thinking about you, wanted to give you a call, see how you're doing. Or I'm jotting this note down just to tell you that I'm here, I love you, I'm thinking of you, I'm proud of you, you've got this, whatever it may be. Just to know that somebody took that slice of time out of their busy, distracted day to direct something to me. I have all of those notes. I have all of those letters.
And they sustain you. And
Yeah.
what it does is, it actually for a moment makes you feel connected, which makes that loss a little easier to deal with. And I have to address this because you said distraction. And we talked about distraction as a good thing. And you're right about something. When I first lost Russ, I was 6 weeks into grief. And what I was looking forward to, because I realized I never was in that surreal feeling people get when they lose someone. Being a realist, I was entrenched right in it. I chose to jump right into the process of grief and address
I think
it.
too, there was a level to compare to with what you had been through.
Right.
His
illness.
Right, and I looked at it all when it happened. Like really. Like, I've been through in my life, like, this is like, it's a bump. We're in a bump. But for some people, this is the largest, biggest thing that ever happened to, knock their breath out and make them aware of the fact that we don't control anything.
Exactly. And that being said, I was looking for, but I was self-aware about this. I was looking forward to Easter last year. And one of the reasons I was because I knew that I was going to be with my family. And we were going to reminisce about Russ. And that was comforting to me. And when the pandemic hit and I found out that there was going to be no Easter celebration and I wasn't going to be in the bosom of my family, that was another loss. Mm-hmm. That was the loss of that connectedness to be able to allow not just me, but everyone that loved him to mourn him, but mourn him in a way that remembered the good times, how much he loved my sister's cooking. That was stripped. That was taken away. And that was a distraction. But that was a good distraction for me because it wasn't like I was looking to forget everything. Right. I was looking for a temporary respite that I could just breathe after 9 months or greater of every day of my life living in fear over his illness and running. It was something that I knew could sustain me, yet it was completely ripped away from me with no control on my part. So again, I'm not alone. You're out there. A lot of you are out there that have gone through this last year. And you are now in this next year trying to navigate the continued process of dealing with your loss.
Well, and it's compound grief.
Yes.
It's not just, which in itself is a big enough thing, losing a loved one. It's losing family members or the presence of family members.
Yes.
It's losing faith in certain things. It's losing trust in certain things. It's seeing the world in a different way than you did prior. And so there's change, and all of this change is new and different. And, even when it's a positive change, there's still grief because things aren't the way they were.
Right.
Whether large or small levels. Having to be as mindful, or having to watch what you say, or watch where you go, or watch where you stand, all of these things that we suddenly find ourselves faced with all compound to that grief of living a life of ease, or of
Familiarity.
yeah.
Familiarity, and you bring up another word, trust here. I just want to throw this out there. In this last year, because of the pandemic, people have lost their trust in each other.
Oh, absolutely.
They've lost, and that's another loss that hit me quite profoundly, because I trust my fellow man. I refuse to live in fear that they could hurt me because of an illness or a virus. I don't expect everyone to have my belief system, but I will tell you this. I feel and have felt that immense lack of trust that someone that meets me walking down the street has for me now because of the pandemic, because of their expectation of what I should be wearing, doing to make them feel safer. And that lack of trust is not helping us. It's not helping the people that have gone through loss, that have gone through grief. If anything, it continues to separate us,
Right.
separate us, separate
Well,
us.
and the more divided and isolated we are, and this is the dichotomy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have learned over the last 11 years, purposely, I learned how to be okay with myself and being alone.
I'm learning
Without,
again.
well, and without feeling like I needed to distract myself with other people and social status and things like that. I'm glad I put that time in, because I think on one hand, that's the dichotomy. Truly, we are responsible for ourselves. We are in this alone. No one lives our life like, we're the only one. I don't care how close you are to the people around you. You are an individual, and no one knows exactly how you feel except for you. You're the only you.
Right.
And yet there's a unity in our uniqueness, if that makes sense. Because
No, it
if we
does.
all are that way, and all of us realize that we are ultimately responsible for how we think and feel and act, that in itself becomes the glue, I suppose, that holds us together. And when you see the reality around you of people that have chosen to sort of turn that over to somebody else, whether they are aware that they are, or they or aren't, and whether it's for good intention or negative intention, or ease, or whatever it may be. Like, I started thinking about the fact that there were a lot of things that I was not aware of when I was in my child raising days, because that's what I was busy with. That's what I was an expert on, if you will. That's where I focused my attention.
Exactly.
And now that my children are grown, and there is that time that has opened up for that, it's been very enlightening, because now I can consider myself an expert in other ways of my life, and have that time to do some of those other things that were put on the back burner during that phase of my life. So I cannot even imagine what it must be like to be a first-time mom, or have a young family during all of this, and dealing with schools and children and all of those kinds of things. Has its own unique set of that. And yet, as I say, there's a community in that experience.
There's a lot, and you bring up a good point. There's a lot of loss, and we've been focusing a little bit on loss of loved ones through death. But the amount of loss that's gone on this year for people, what about the moms? What about the moms that had their kids in school, and all of a sudden found themselves in not just a mom role, but now a teacher role? There's that loss of actually being able to spend time with your children the way you used to. They would come home from school. You could spend downtime with them. They had socialization. They no longer have it. There is so much loss that went on this year that has been right under the surface that a lot of people aren't aware of, that is going to impact them. It's impacting them right now. And some people are aware of it, some people are not. But too many normal things have been taken away. That's loss.
That's loss,
That's
and
loss.
it's also opportunity to learn.
Yes, it is. Absolutely correct.
And again, it depends on how you can reframe that.
Exactly right.
You can look very much at the glass half empty way of life and all of the things that have been lost or are different or whatever. Or you can look at things as the glass is half full. I personally,
Right.
I believe that, and this has to do with my own work that I've done with myself or whatever, everything is unfolding exactly as it needs to unfold.
I
And
agree.
every one of us is exactly where we're supposed to be.
I agree. And you bring up something about half empty versus half full. The issue that I see a lot of times is we're talking as two self-aware women, okay? I believe in half full. But so many people caught up in this loss are not thinking of that at all. They can't because they're distracted. They're distracted with the changes that have happened in their life that demand their attention, such as playing mom and teacher.
Well, and also everyone is at a different place
Yeah.
in their journey. And I think one of the things that I have learned through all of this is to be more compassionate and understanding for other people who aren't able to see things the same way that I do or have the same belief system that I do or
Right.
have been through what I've been through to have the attitude that I have.
Mhm.
Which is why to me the glass isn't half full. To me the glass is overflowing with amazing abundance, and I'm so eternally
Possibility.
incredibly grateful for everything. And the things that I've learned as far as being fearless and resilient and all of those things. Again, it's that reframe of looking at the positive things, even through my grief journey as I'm on this road. The gifts, I was going to call the book The Gifts of Grief at one point, but I thought no one will ever buy it. There are gifts in all of it if you can stay present enough, if you can kind of turn your brain off from the worrying or the living in the past and come to that place of being present in the now.
It's
There are-
it's gratitude.
It's gratitude.
It's gratitude.
There are blessings. There are people that come into your path that you're more thankful for because you know what it's felt like to not have them in your life.
Right.
Everything that is how do I say this? I want to say like everything that is missing now
Mm-hmm.
has been replaced.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, I look and say it's been replaced with something better.
Right.
There's more wisdom attached to it.
If you choose that, it's
You
a
find
choice.
out who people truly are, and
Right.
you have the ability to decide whether or not they're a part of your life or they're what part they played in your journey to this point.
Right.
You realize that what's really important is your health, your family's health, your feeling of safety in your home. It's not
Security.
about what you own or what you made or that. Everybody's different with what they've learned on this. I personally am very grateful for the lessons that I have learned, the things that I have gleaned in this whole experience of the last 14 days to flatten the curve. And, and the time that's been, people are finding
Smartness.
out like, I don't have to commute. I can work
Right.
remotely. There are a lot of things that I think we talked about this the last time, that being on the hamster wheel, that you just sort of get into that pattern and you don't really think about it. And all of a sudden we get smacked with nothing but time to think. And that can be a really great thing. It can also be a negative thing. Like there again, it's that
Right.
balance. And especially when you're going through a loss like you experienced, Diane, to not have the choice, I guess.
It's about choice for
Right,
me. It's
right.
all about choice.
You know,
for me.
there are times when you might choose to be by yourself and
Exactly.
alone and journal. But there are other times you might choose to be with family.
Of which, again, and that was my whole wanting to do this show on loss today, what was to talk about how going through it at a time of a pandemic changed loss, and not necessarily for the better. But I agree wholeheartedly with Nancy on one thing. I think it's really important for those of us who are still raw at 2 years or less to understand and see the person that's walked the journey ahead of us. And I do also embrace the fact that I'm exactly where I should be on my journey right now. This is what I'm supposed to be experiencing. Where Nancy's at gives me hope. It reminds me of some of the things that I've always embraced, which is I also have seen great grace in the last year of my life. I'm very grateful for numerous things. So if you're out there looking at me and you're kind of like going, kind of saying, well, she's focused on the negative. Well, that's part of where I'm at in the newness and rawness of loss.
Well, just be real.
And it's real. And it's real. And that's what I want to do is I want to let everybody know who's out there with me that it's okay to be where you're at right now. I am an extremely compassionate person. I will jump and help a friend in need. It's been difficulty for me.
Guess what time it is?
Oh,
the
and
10 o'clock. Was it 10?
Can you hear that? No, that's
siren?
that's the noon siren.
Oh, the noon siren.
That's how you know you're in the country.
Yeah.
Out
Lunchtime,
of the
everybody.
country, it's lunchtime. A little levity to break that seriousness. But no, Nancy brings up the great point, which is there is great grace, and there are wonderful things that can happen at devastating times in life.
Yeah.
And it is your ability. I still, every day in the midst of whether I'm having a good day or not a good day, I just look up many times and say, I'm so grateful for this, and that. And that sustains me.
Well, and I think too, that helps us remember grief is unbelievably normal.
Right.
It's another emotion that we feel as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something to be avoided, and yet most people, and in our culture, we're taught to avoid it, to tiptoe around it. I have a news flash for everybody. When you go through what you've been through, Diane, the pandemic became an excuse. That's all.
Thank you for that. I agree wholeheartedly.
You would have felt a lot of, I believe, a lot of the same feelings and the same emotions and the same aloneness, even if things were completely normal.
It was
because
amplified. It was the pandemic.
Absolutely. And it became a convenient excuse for a lot of people to go, oh, I can avoid that whole situation because I can't go there because of, we're in that 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
It was amplified. What the pandemic did for myself and many others was it amplified our loss.
Mm-hmm.
So the loss that we would have gone through normally
compounded.
It compounded and amplified it. It made it even larger.
And that's why you need to give yourself credit for being the warrior survivor that you
are.
I am
a warrior.
Same with you out there,
I'm a warrior.
This is life. This is life lived in all its complexities. And it's what, again, it's like it propels you out of that little, the little beige bandwidth that so many of us lived our lives in, and propels us into higher highs and lower lows and grows us in ways that we never, I don't know if we could have found anything else to grow us in the same way.
Right, exactly.
Which is, again, it's that ability to reframe and to be grateful, mm-hmm. to be aware and present enough in the moments to find those the blessings that come out of it, right. the little moments of things, the reminders, every time a cardinal flies by, I'm like, hey, Bob, how you doing? That's where the gifts in a really sucky situation comes from. And
right.
To me, what I've been through has been proof of the goodness of people and the beauty of the world. Not that I didn't have my moments and don't have my moments of thinking that everyone's an asshole. That's just real.
Don't hold back on how you
I
feel,
won't.
Nancy.
That's just real.
Don't hold back.
And I think what this did too for a lot of people is it stripped away. Are we still recording?
Yes, we are.
Okay, cool.
And we're getting close to
Okay. Is it stripped away a lot of the facade. We all had something to connect with. It's like the whole world went through a loss, and yes, it wasn't the loss of a loved one necessarily, dealing with death or whatever. But we all have a universal thing that we share now.
Right.
We've all been ripped off of something special because of the dictates that came down of how we need to live our lives and give them 14 days to flatten the curve.
Yeah.
That was worldwide, and that always blew me away.
Right.
You know, I always thought it was kind of like a localized sort of thing until you do a little travel around the United States or you start watching some videos and see people in other parts of the world and you just go, wow, like this is, it's, it's monumental and it has, I think, changed the way we are as a society.
Yeah.
I hope, and my wish is, and the things that I see in the world is that it's changed us for the better. It's changed the way that we look at grief.
I hope so. I don't necessarily, from my perspective, see that yet because I've seen what I've seen is the
Well-
big it has on some levels, yes, but we're still combating the fact that as society and worldwide that there's been some negative impact of it is it's forced people for some people have become more self-focused and we can't be in
Right,
denial
right.
of that because that interferes with our connectedness.
Well, and
It
I'm sorry,
does.
you know, wherever you are, wherever you go, there you are. With
John
whatever.
Kabat-Zinn.
And I have to say that there were times that I would see people and I was like, you know what? You are an ass behind the mask. You're a mask without a
In front
mask.
of
You're
the
an
mask.
asshole without a mask. You're
Right,
just an asshole.
Right.
And you're going to be that way. Wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah.
You bring who you are
John
into
Kabat-Zinn.
every situation. And whether you
Right.
cover it up or you don't cover it up, it's very apparent. And that's, like I said, everybody's in their own particular place in their journey.
Right. And that's what we need to respect. And I think, and on that note, my friend, I'm looking at our little time
Yeah.
limit there. On that note, I want to say that I hope that what we've brought to the table today gives you food for thought, maybe perhaps in ways that you hadn't thought so before. But I also hope it brings some element of positivity to how you will step out into the world, maybe a little bit differently after listening to this. And remembering that it's essential that we stay connected physically, emotionally, and we never put a substitution in for it. We're going to see there's great healing. There's great healing for the world when you can grab someone's hand and hold it.
Absolutely.
There's something to it. It's not just the 80s thing. When was it, the Hands Around the World? In the 80s? Do you remember that? Do you remember that where everybody held hands around the world? Maybe we need to go back to that. But any last thoughts, my dear, before we...
I was just going to say, remember that everybody is doing the best they can in a situation that is uncharted territory.
I need to remember that too.
And there's a something about that being able to forgive for yourself. It more than even for other people, but it's a process.
Yes.
And wherever you are is exactly okay for where you are.
It is.
Please
Yes.
share. If you know someone that's going through things, please share this with them so that all of us know that none of us are alone in everything.
Right.
Leave
Subscribe.
comments. Let us know where you're at and what your story is. And again, please know that you're not alone. We are all bound together in our separateness, if that makes sense.
And as always, our
I gotta turn this around.
as always, tap.
Yeah.
Tap
Tap
into your
badass.
Bye, guys.